So I heard on the radio the other day that the majority of Americans have less than $80,000 in savings for retirement. And they were talking about how the new number for retirement is $1.5 million. That's what people think you need to be, quote unquote, safe in retirement. Now, I can't tell you if that's the right number or not. I have no idea if either of those pieces of information are correct. But it made me start thinking about money and my money and how I feel really damn good about the way that I have managed my money throughout my career. Now, we've talked before about how lucrative a career in construction can be. I think I've mentioned that by the time I was 27, I was making six figures when I went out of town and was getting per diem. And I've just done a really good job of managing it. Now, a lot of that is because my mom was a high school math teacher, and my mom was excellent at teaching my brother and I how to manage our money. It started as early as junior high when in junior high, granted, this is a long time ago, we were each given $15 a week allowance, and we had to buy our own school lunches with that. Now, we could choose to make lunch at home and save the money. We could choose to spend it all, but it wasn't just for lunches. It was if we wanted to go see a movie or we wanted to go skating or whatever we wanted to do outside of that as well. It all came out of our allowance. And then when we went to high school, we got $20 a week. And same situation. We had to pay for our lunches. And so we learned how to manage our money. If at the end of the week we were out of money and we wanted to go to a movie, it was SOL. My mom was not giving us money. She was very good at staying firm to that. Sorry if in the background you hear my dog whining. She really wants me to open the car window. But through my career, I thought, you know what? I'm just going to talk about finances and let you guys know the decisions or the things that I did really well in my career because I think they could help some people. So here we go. When the first really good career move as far as money, when I graduated college, well, you know what? I'm going to back up for a second and say, you know, when I went to college, I got a 2-year scholarship at a community college. I only used 1 year of it because I couldn't stay at home anymore. I'm like, I have to go. I want to go be a real college student somewhere. And I worked about 20 hours a week all through college. And so when I graduated college, I believe I owed a total of $2,300. That was it. So number one, great financial decision. I went to an affordable school and I worked. So second thing, about 6 months after I graduated, 9 months, about 9 months after I graduated from college, I bought my first house. And if you haven't bought your first house yet, I know there used to be, I think there still is, a really good incentive for first-time home buyers. I actually bought my first house. It was $60,000 back in 1997. And I bought it for I don't know, $2,500 down or something. It was a really great program for first-time home buyers. And I lived for a few months off my credit card, which I'd never done before. At age 16, my mom handed me a credit card. It was joint with hers, and she said, put anything you want on it, but every month when that bill comes, you pay off whatever you put on that month. So I had never had any debt in that credit card form. And so the first couple months after I bought my house, I did live off a credit card, but then I got it paid off very quickly. Within 2 months, got it paid off. But the thing about buying a house that quickly out of school is that as soon as I was sent out of town, I got per diem because I owned a house. Now, there was a guy that I started with. His name was Justin. Justin and I started the same day, and Justin and I both got sent out of town about the same time, a couple of years after we'd started our careers. And Justin lived in an apartment. I owned a house. So when I got sent out of town, for 2 years, I received a $2,000 a month per diem. Now, granted, that was like year 2000, so per diems are different today. But for 2 years, I received an extra $2,000 a month to cover living expenses. And Justin, from what I understand, because he lived in an apartment, they paid to terminate his lease early. They paid for the moving truck and the deposit and stuff on the apartment. He didn't get per diem. I am telling you, if you hear anything from this story, if you think you may travel in your job, buy a house so you can get that per diem. The second good move that I made was when I got that per diem, I put every single penny in the savings account. Caveat, the first year, I did not. I bought a car. I already had my motorcycle then. But I did buy a brand new car. It was 0% financing. And at the end of that first year, I got my W-2 in the mail and I was like, oh my gosh, I made so much money and I put nothing in savings. So didn't do great that year. But the second year, I'm like, I'm not doing that again. And I literally put every penny of my per diem check in the bank. So I had that savings to go into my first Edward Jones account. The next smartest move financially, I think, that I made in my career is when I requested a change to a different department. And it wasn't the change that was the smart move. The smart move was I phoned a friend. I phoned a friend and said, hey, I have a feeling they're going to ask me to take a paycheck. I have a feeling they're going to ask me to take a pay cut. And I'm curious how much of a pay cut you think I should take. And he said to me, I'm sorry, I don't know how after 19 years you just became less valuable to the company. I never thought about it that way. And it just gave me this inner strength to have that conversation when I sat down with the vice president and he started to allude to something of that nature in the conversation. I can't say for sure that's where he was going, but he said, salary difference is, something we need to discuss because you most likely make more than most of the people in that department. And he kind of paused and I said, well, if you're talking about a pay cut, I'd like to understand how I just became less valuable to the company. Totally used my friend's words. He was a bit taken aback and he said, no, I wasn't, no, I'm just saying that, it's something that needs to be discussed. I said, oh, absolutely. I totally understand that. That is something that you'll probably need to discuss with someone. So I didn't take a pay cut. That was really good for me. The next thing that was really great for me financially was a coworker. And this is a painful memory, but a guy that had worked for me, still a good friend of mine today, he got promoted to the same position that I was at. And he walked up to me one day at my desk and he laid his promotion letter on my desk and he walked away. He wanted me to see what they were offering him for pay. And what I found out was they were offering him the same salary that I had, and I'd been in that role for 9 years. And at that moment, I realized I needed to stop thinking that people were just going to reward me for doing a good job. I had to advocate for myself. And that is when I started doing that. So as painful as it was to see that letter, I mean, what a great friend to do that for me. And I'm a big believer in salary transparency. I'm sure there are situations that may not make sense. I don't know what they'd be because I personally feel like if you can't be transparent with salaries, then you probably have something to hide. I feel like there should be a range for each position. And I think it could be incentivizing. That's so not a word. Incentivizing to know, hey, I'm at the low end of this range. What do I need to do to get to the top range, right? Anyway, enough about that. The next time that I made a really good move financially in my career is when I switched companies. And it wasn't, once again, the switching companies that made it so good. It was, once again, the phone a friend. And I called the same friend that I had called before. And I said, I don't have any idea what to even ask for in this position. And he'd already had a position similar to that. And so he gave me a number and I was like, oh my gosh, somebody would pay me that. He's like, yes, you should actually probably already be making that. So yes, ask for this number. And as I sat in that interview, I went through many, many interviews. And the last one, one of the owners of the company said to me, has anyone talked money with you? And I said, no, they have not. He said, can we do that now? And I said, yes. And I said, I would need X dollars to make it worth my while. And he said, okay. I would have never asked for that money if I hadn't phoned my friend. If my friend is listening to this right now, he's probably going to text me and ask me where his cut of my pay has been for his 2 times that he really helped me out. Okay, so the next time that I made a really good financial decision in my career is when I changed jobs again. And this time, I'll admit I wasn't truly honest, but I wasn't sure that I really wanted the position anyway. And I thought, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I want it to be really worthwhile. And so I told the person I was interviewing with that, hey, this is the salary I'm making now. I don't need to make more because it is a position that I'm interested in managing people again. But I'm not going to take less. And he said, man, that's more than our people are making right now, but let me talk to upper management. And I'm telling you right now, the number I told him I was making was not the number I was making. I told him a number that was significantly higher than the number I was making. And I got it. And so I will tell you that in a matter of 4 years, I increased my salary by over $50,000, my base salary. So, all right. I'm then going to tell you one more thing about the financial aspect of my career. It is when one day I realized with proof that someone who was supposed to be a peer was making more money than I was. And as far as I was concerned, we had the same background. We had the same experience in the industry. We'd both been superintendents. We'd both transitioned to operations roles. I had been on an owner's side. I don't believe that he had, but I did not understand why he would be making more money than I was. And so I called my boss and I said, hey, I want to know what I need to do to make as much as such and such makes. And he said, and this is an in-person conversation. I called him to set up the meeting, but it was an in-person meeting. And he said, oh, no, you guys are making the same amount. I said, no, I know for a fact that we are not. And he knew how I'd known that. It was total accident. Somehow I had been given full access to our HR system and was able to see everyone's salaries. And yes, I took advantage of it. There were 4 or 5 people that I specifically looked up theirs to make sure I was where I needed to be salary range. And then I looked at my boss's salary because I wanted to see where he was so I could see where I could get, so I could understand the potential. And I even told my boss, kudos to you on that salary range. So they knew. I had told them as soon as I saw it, I had called HR and said, hey, there's a problem. I can see it. I don't know who else can see it. And yes, I looked at people's salaries. So I didn't lie about it. I didn't hide it, but I did say, what do I need to do? What do I need to do to make as much as he's making? And he pulled it up and he said, sure enough, there is a discrepancy here. How would you like me to fix it? And I said, you know what? I'm gonna let you figure that out, but I want to know something soon. And a couple weeks went by and a month went by. And so I followed up with an email and I got no response. And then another month went by and I followed up with another email. I wanted to have all of this in writing and no response. And then I think it was 1 or 2 months after that I finally had my last day. I gave my notice and I had my last day. Now, it wasn't only because of the salary. There were other reasons I was giving my notice, but had I continued to make less than this person, but that's not fair and that's not somewhere I want to work. So that's when I quit my job. That is when I went out on my own. That is when I started my business. And full transparency, my first year of business, I made a fourth to a fifth of what I had been making. But man, I loved that first year. I didn't work that hard, but I just took the time I needed to decompress and travel and think about what the business was that I wanted to form and was able to really get my speaking and my consulting and my training business off the ground. But I was able to do that because I had savings. I had savings because of all the things that I just mentioned. Now, granted, I am divorced. I don't have kids. So I'm not someone who's ever had to put money aside for kids' college. And even when I was married, we had a really great financial relationship. We never argued about money. We had his, hers, and ours. And we put 50% of each of our salaries into that joint account. And in that account, we paid for all the necessities. We paid mortgage. We paid car payments. We paid food, going out to dinner, travel, came out of joint. But keeping the other 50% to ourselves allowed us to spend it however we wanted without judgment. I could buy a $150 pair of leather pants, and he was unaffected. He could buy a $6,000 dirt bike. I am unaffected. But it was also great because it made the money part easier when we did go our separate ways. So hopefully there's some things that you can take away from my experiences, the difficult and the good decisions that I made. I am really thankful for my mom teaching me to be such a good money manager. But I mean, listening to that conversation on the radio about what people need for retirement, I feel good about what I've done, how I've saved. And I want you to feel the same way. If you are struggling with money right now, find somebody that can help get you on track. You do not want to be 50 years old and thinking, oh shit, I'm going to have to work till I'm 75. I could stop working now and get a fun job at Home Depot and have a great rest of my life. I don't want to. I'm not ready. I'm not ready to roll it up. I want you to keep hiring me for speaking engagements. I want you to keep hiring me at your companies to bring more women into your organization, or to help you advance them into leadership positions, or to just help you retain the women that tend to be leaving for other companies. I want to do all of this. But what I love about it is I don't have to. I want you to get to that point. So that's it. That's all I have for you today. I hope that you found it useful.